Welcome to NarrativeNook where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening.
Are you Mr. Collins's daughter? Burnell was taken aback by her identity. Ever since the Sullivan family moved to Dawnstar, it had been 7 or 8 years since they last visited their homeland. At a charity gala almost a decade ago, Burnell had the good fortune of briefly meeting Mr. Collins, and he was astonished to find that his daughter had grown into such a stunning woman. "What's your name?" Burnell was eager to get to know her. "Is there something else you want?" "I'd like to get to know you. Can I have your contact information?" Burnell pulled out his smartphone, his gaze filled with genuine interest and nervous anticipation. At that moment, Arabella noticed a maid nearby clenching her fists with her thumbs tapping against her forehead as if signaling to a butler across the room. The butler caught on immediately. After a few seconds, several other maids replicated the gesture. The butler nodded and discreetly walked away. "If it's not too much trouble, could you tell me where you live? Who did you come with? How can I get in touch with you usually?" Burnell didn't want to miss this opportunity to connect with her. But Arabella replied coolly, "I'm already engaged." Burnell watched her walk away, stunned for several seconds before he processed what she had said. She was engaged? She had a fiancé? But then, he thought it made sense. A woman as beautiful and spirited as her, and the daughter of a wealthy tycoon, was bound to be spoken for early on. Still, why did he feel a pang of disappointment, as if he'd just gone through a breakup? Arabella followed the butler, noticing him glancing back to ensure no one was following. Along the way, he exchanged knowing looks and nods with other butlers. Arabella watched him ascend a secluded spiral staircase in the garden, leading to a large circular balcony on the second floor, guarded by several bodyguards. The butler whispered something to the guards, who immediately let him through. As Arabella caught a glimpse of what looked like a study through the door the butler opened, it closed before she could see more. Scanning the surroundings, just as she was about to find a spot to leap up from, she realized someone was behind her. Turning around, she saw Burnell standing not far behind. Perhaps not expecting her sudden turnaround, Burnell grew even more nervous but mustered the courage to say, "Sorry, I don't know if I'm acquainted with your fiancé. May I be so bold as to ask who he is?" Arabella, realizing that the people in the study must have been reporting for quite some time, simply said to Burnell, "Romeo Macmillan." Hearing the name Romeo Macmillan, Burnell knew he had no chance left. He apologized for the intrusion and hastily retreated. Arabella noticed a narrow path to the right of the mansion, a strip of land about 3 feet wide bordered by the villa's fence and wall, unguarded. She easily scaled the side using the railings and the wall for support and slipped through a window into a second-floor restroom. When she cracked the door to peek outside, she saw no guests, just bodyguards filling the second-floor hallway. Venturing out now would surely raise an alarm. Arabella gently closed the restroom door, but this action caught the attention of a keen-eyed guard. Perhaps because he noticed the restroom door moving, the guard approached, swung the door open, and finding it empty, his eyes darted to the open window. He strode over to investigate. Arabella seized the opportunity, descending from above to knock him out, then donned his uniform and stepped out of the restroom. Just then, an elderly person arrived by elevator, prompting all the guards, including Arabella in her disguise, to bow their heads in respect. Everyone murmured in a hushed yet coordinated tone, "Mr. Clarence." Mr. Clarence nodded slightly. "Everyone spread out and keep watch." "Yes, sir." All the bodyguards dispersed in unison, and Arabella, taking their lead, bowed slightly and stepped back a few paces. She watched as Mr. Clarence pushed open a door, revealing an interior with decor and lighting similar to what she had seen downstairs. A bodyguard caught her gaze, but just as he looked in her direction, Arabella lowered her head and followed the other guards out of the room. After a while, Arabella circled back alone. She pulled out her phone, which had a special system she had been working on, and pressed it against the door. Soon, she could hear the conversation inside. Eunice only brought that girl, and none of the bodyguards barred arranged for her. Also, those guys she hired from Alexander are all holed up in the villa, none of them stepped out. Our men have patrolled the outskirts a few times, and there's no sign of anyone suspicious. That's out of character for her, Almost doesn't seem like her, mused Mr. Clarence in a reflective tone. Maybe she thinks tonight is just an ordinary birthday party, and besides, she rarely takes bodyguards when she goes out. No, you don't understand her. She used to go out without bodyguards because Bard was there, and Bard could protect her, Mr. Clarence said gravely. I suspect she might have guessed something, so she deliberately didn't bring her men, aiming to bait us into a trap. The servant found this hard to believe. If she's as smart as you say, why would she bring along a liability? That girl looks young, a Collins heiress at that. If anything goes wrong, how is she going to handle it? Appearances can be deceiving, Mr. Clarence replied thoughtfully, recalling the girl. You didn't see how she could recover deleted surveillance footage. Plus, with that demeanor, she's definitely not ordinary. Moreover, her status is her best protection. So, in your opinion, should we call off tonight's operation? The subordinate felt it was a shame, given the time they had spent planning. Let's wait for news from the other side. If that man is taken care of, even if Eunice is prepared, we will have nothing to fear. Arabella listened intently. Who was that man? Her grandfather? Or her uncle? Suddenly, Arabella remembered whether her family had enough people to ensure her grandfather's safety. And her uncle was on a business trip. Was he in danger on the road? Suddenly, footsteps approached quickly. Arabella turned and immediately countered the incoming attack. Who are you? I've seen you skulking around. Before the bodyguard could finish, Arabella subdued him with a swift combination of moves. Those inside the study heard the commotion, exchanged glances, and opened the door to find no one outside. Go check it out, Mr. Clarence ordered with an icy tone. The servant promptly obeyed, returning after a while to report. Mr. Clarence, no abnormalities were found. By this time, Arabella had already dragged the unconscious bodyguard to the adjacent master bedroom, which seemed austere and majestic, likely Arlen's room. His room was off-limits to the servants. Mr. Clarence glanced at Arlen's bedroom door but lacked the audacity to enter, ultimately just instructing coldly, "Find out who has left the ground floor just now, and report back to me immediately." "Yes, sir." After hearing this, Arabella looked around Arlen's room and found a computer. She booted it up and hacked into the system, only to find it devoid of anything useful. She decided to sabotage some of the ground floor surveillance and then left, returning nonchalantly to the garden. The bodyguards checked the main hall and found all the quests accounted for, except for Eunice and Arabella. They found themselves strolling back into the garden, and there was Arabella, seemingly lost in the beauty of the night. Their gaze was tinged with surprise, as more than one had speculated that she had sneaked upstairs with Eunice. Yet here she was, taking in the scenery, while Eunice had been cornered by a gaggle of nosy socialites. The head of the security team quietly reported to his earpiece, "Everyone's on the ground floor, no one has left." Mr. Clarence, through gritted teeth, asked, "Have you checked the cameras?" "We've sent someone to look into it. Tonight must go off without a hitch. I want a thorough check, not a single detail missed." "Understood." From afar, Arabella noticed her aunt had triumphed once again, leaving the women red-faced and huffing away in defeat. Aunt Eunice, Arabella greeted with a smile. Eunice returned the smile warmly. "You're here. I've sent what I overheard to your phone, but about Grandpa and Uncle Bard." "No worries, I have everything in hand." Eunice's smile was radiant. "I've sent you what I've found as well." Arabella checked her phone and saw that her aunt had observed through the kitchen's bay window a suspicious exchange between a servant and the chef. Concerned they might tamper with the food. With such an array of dishes, identifying the compromised from the safe was a daunting task. Just then, a maid passed by with a tray, and Arabella asked for 2 glasses of mint lemonade. Seizing a moment when no one was looking, she dropped something into the drinks. Eunice took the glass offered by Arabella, recalling that Bard had mentioned his niece's medical prowess. "The pills she dropped must be an antidote? Drink this to stay sharp." Arabella clinked glasses with her aunt, speaking casually, "Whatever they've slipped in, it won't affect us." Eunice's smile broadened. Bringing this niece along had been a stroke of genius. As the two sipped their mint lemonade, a figure watched and signaled to an accomplice. "I'll find a spot to listen to what you've sent me." Eunice knew she was being watched and couldn't openly listen to the recording there. All right. Arabella hatched a plan to extract more clues from Mr. Clarence. So far, the evidence could only implicate Mr. Clarence and the manservant in a sinister plot against her aunt. As for the true mastermind and the myriad details behind it all, they were still submerged beneath the surface. Mr. Clarence was already on his guard, having sent people to check the surveillance. Arabella knew her time was running short. Although she had erased parts of the surveillance footage, Mr. Clarence's suspicious nature would lead him to suspect foul play, and inevitably to her. If he started having her followed, she'd be hampered in her movements. She set her glass down, intending to head for the main hall. But she was blocked by a group of girls, led by Rose. Arabella met her gaze, and Rose sneered, "We meet again." Arlen wanted a word, and everyone went inside. "Arabella, you dared to hit me yesterday, and today you've embarrassed me in front of all those people. I won't let you get away with it." Standing by Rose's side were her 3 friends, poised and ready to show Arabella what they were made of. "I've got 3 friends here," Rose boasted with a proud tilt of her head. "One's a black belt in Taekwondo, another's a champ in kickboxing, and the last one's an MMA fighter." "And what?" Arabella's lips curled into a cold smirk. "You think you're some kind of saint, expecting people to bow and scrape? If you're going to throw down, just get on with it. Why all the big talk?" Rose was taken aback by Arabella's brazenness. "Novia, Polly, Antonia, let's show her some manners." The trio, with their fancy but ineffective moves, were swiftly laid out on the ground by Arabella, whimpering in pain. Rose couldn't believe her eyes. Just yesterday, when she got her butt kicked, she thought Arabella was just some amateur with a few tricks up her sleeve. She had no idea Arabella was this formidable. "Novia, aren't you a Taekwondo black belt?" Rose stammered, backing away as Arabella advanced. "Polly, didn't you beat up your own instructor? And Antonia, haven't you won some fighting competitions?" "Rose, you'd better run." Novia groaned from the ground, unable to get up. "Didn't you see? Even if the Dawnstar boxing champ showed up, they wouldn't stand a chance against her." Hearing this, Rose was dumbfounded. She had suspected Arabella was strong, but not to this extent. Antonia and Polly couldn't believe it either. They had walked into a death trap set up by their dear friend Rose. As soon as Arabella had thrown her first punch, they knew they were outclassed. Why had Rose thought their half-baked skills could make even a dent in Arabella? And the expectation to make Arabella bow down to them? Pure fantasy. Strangely enough, Arabella hadn't been ruthless. She had simply knocked them down without the intent to seriously hurt them. If she had wanted to inflict real damage, it would have taken her mere seconds. But she refrained. In their pain, Antonia, Polly, and Novia couldn't help but feel a begrudging respect and a quiet gratitude. But it was too late for Rose to make an escape. Arabella tossed her into the flower bed, leaving her with scratches on her hands and face, and a likely sprained back. Just then, Arabella noticed Arlen finishing his speech in the main hall and making his way upstairs. She quickly followed, bumping into Eunice. "What's up?" Eunice's gaze fell on her. "It looks like Arlen's heading to his room." "So?" Eunice was puzzled. "I knocked out 2 bodyguards. They're in there," Arabella admitted, nodding. One was in the bathroom, whose uniform she had donned to blend in. The other was by the study door. Eunice didn't expect her niece to be so fierce and immediately stepped forward to intercept. Arlen, accompanied by Calvin and Bess, was about to ascend the staircase when Eunice's voice rang out. "Arlen, I need a word with you." Arlen turned, his face the picture of benevolence. "Ah, Eunice, what is it? Can it wait? I need to change my clothes." But as Arlen confirmed his intention to head to his room, Eunice blurted out, "It's about Alexander." Not just Arlen, but also Calvin and Bess' eyes flickered with a shadow of something dark and indecipherable. Eunice caught that fleeting expression and, with a mischievous gleam in her eye, she couldn't resist teasing. "Today's your birthday, so consider this juicy bit my generous gift to you." Arlen chuckled, playing along with her game. "Whoever you're talking about, I don't know this guy, and whatever they're up to, it's no concern of mine." Just as Arlen was about to head upstairs, Eunice's laughter stopped him in his tracks. "Oh, but it is relevant." Arlen paused, curious despite himself. This matter involves someone from the Griffith clan. As the family elder, don't you want to know what they've been up to? Arlen pondered for a moment before relenting. "All right, lead the way upstairs." "No, I choose the place," Eunice countered with a sly smile, her red lips curving into a charming grin. "Please follow me, Arlen." Arlen cast a meaningful glance at his younger brother and sister-in-law before stepping out to follow Eunice. As Eunice passed by Arabella, she shot her a conspiratorial wink. Arabella quickly took the hint, slipping upstairs to discreetly relocate the two bodyguards elsewhere. In the garden, Eunice, now accompanied by Calvin and Bess, maintained her smile. "This is for Arlen's ears only. By seniority, we're your elders. If Arlen is privy to this info, why aren't we?" Bess asked, clearly annoyed. "Yes, you're not." Eunice's smile never wavered as she emphasized each word. "Given your usual unreasonable behavior, I have no desire to share with you." Bess was livid, insulted by Eunice's lack of respect, and stormed off. Calvin, with a scowl, followed suit. "So, what's the big secret?" Arlen asked, intrigued by what Eunice was up to. Eunice had a way of stirring trouble that could easily drive a wedge between him and the younger members of the family. From a distance, Bess could see Eunice's red lips moving animatedly, her eyes darting in their direction now and then, as if she was speaking ill of them. "What's that vixen on about? Why does she keep looking over here?" Bess muttered irritably. Calvin, observing Eunice, let out a cold laugh. If she really knew something substantial, why would she bother telling the runt? "That's true." Bess had a moment of clarity, then considered another possibility. What if she only knows part of the story and not the whole truth? Possibly. After Eunice finished speaking, she pulled out something that resembled a USB drive from her pocket and slipped it into Arlen's jacket. Her grace and poise in every gesture, every expression, left Bess seething with envy. It all seemed like an act of flirtation. Arlen, having waded through a sea of nonsense, finally seized upon something worthwhile. The secret was on that drive. As Arlen considered heading upstairs to uncover this so-called secret, Eunice called out, "Arlen." He turned, realizing she wasn't done, and with a sigh asked, "What now?" "I forgot to give you the password," Eunice said with a playful smile. "There's an encrypted file. Come closer. I'll tell only you." As Arlen leaned in, she whispered, 123456. He nodded, "Got it. You'll remember?" She teased. Who could forget such a simple password? "I'm not senile yet." Arlen retorted with a grin, then made his way upstairs. Bess shot Eunice a disgruntled look before trailing after Arlen. Calvin followed, his curiosity piqued. That clueless woman, all her scheming amounts to nothing. She has no idea that Arlen's playing for our team. Eunice watched their retreating figures with a curious glint in her eye. Although she didn't have any concrete evidence to reveal who the mole really was, the sight of the trio ascending the stairs together gave her a strong hunch that the traitor wasn't acting alone. "Arlen, what did that woman say to you earlier?" Calvin whispered urgently as they reached the top of the staircase. "How much does she really know?" "She blabbed a whole lot of nonsense at first, nothing of value. But then she handed me this USB drive, claimed all the secrets were on it." Arlen pushed open the door to the study and booted up the computer, plugging in the USB drive. There it was, an encrypted folder. Arlen typed in 123456, but the password was incorrect. He tried again, same result. "Is that woman tricking me?" Arlen's face darkened with suspicion, wondering what kind of game she was playing. "Earlier, she asked if you remembered, and you said you did. You bragged about not being senile, so why can't you remember now?" Bess was suddenly skeptical. Could it be that Arlen was deliberately entering the wrong password, planning to keep the contents to himself once they left? Arlen frowned, irritated. "Bess, what are you insinuating? Are you suggesting that I'm faking the password error so you can't see what's inside? You said that the secret Eunice gave you was simple, but you got it wrong. So, what's the real password? 123,456. Who sets such a simple password? If the contents were that important, she would never use something so basic. Arlen was getting annoyed. That's what she told me, the password. You said earlier that she spouted a bunch of useless nonsense before mentioning the USB drive. Based on what I know about her, she's not one to beat around the bush. Could it be that she said something beforehand that you're not comfortable sharing with us? Bess pressed on with her suspicion. What could possibly be so uncomfortable? Did you or Calvin do something in the past that might come back to bite you if I found out? That's out of line. Bess exploded like a cat with its tail stepped on. Seeing Bess' reaction, Arlen suddenly considered the possibility. But Eunice's business took precedence. Eunice only talked about her life with Alexander and how sincere his feelings were for her. She didn't say anything else. That's why he thought Eunice had been rambling on about irrelevant things. Nothing else. Are you sure about that, Arlen? When Arlen realized he was getting nowhere with Bess, he turned to Calvin. Calvin, you don't trust me either? Let's do this. Do you have anyone who could crack this password? Calvin's words were cut short by a sharp nudge from his wife. Honey, have you forgotten? We have our own tech whiz. It's Arlen's birthday today. We can't bother him with this. Let's take the USB drive back and have someone on our team look into it. Upon hearing this, Arlen realized that Bess wanted to see the contents first. Could it be that there were things even he wasn't aware of? Bess, you are so hung up on that flash drive. Could it be that there's something on there you don't want me to see? Arlen didn't hesitate. He yanked the flash drive from the computer and slipped it into his pocket. Bess panicked. I knew it. You know the password. You've just been playing dumb trying to catch us out. What could we possibly have that you don't know about? It's you, isn't it? Have you been doing something behind Calvin's back? Hand over that flash drive. Upstairs, Eunice knew chaos had erupted. When she saw Arabella approach, a smirk played on her lips. You're quick on your feet, kiddo. You're not too shabby yourself, Aunt Eunice. Eunice's voice dropped to a whisper. There are over 100 cameras around this mansion. Can you hack them remotely? Her people, upon arriving nearby, discovered that the entire area within a 500-yard radius of the mansion was under surveillance. It looked like Arlen was planning something big. I've taken care of the cameras by the back door and along the east fence. Eunice was taken aback. When did you do that? Just now. After eavesdropping on Mr. Clarence and his goons in the study, I paid a little visit to Arlen's room and took the liberty of disabling them. Eunice hadn't expected her niece to be so swift, nor so clever to anticipate their moves and disable the cameras in advance. So, you're telling me that if someone were to come in through the east fence or the back door, the cameras wouldn't catch a thing? Arabella nodded. The guys in the security room will see the timestamps moving, but the footage is frozen. The system isn't recording anything. Even if someone were to walk in right now, it wouldn't show up on their screens. You're amazing. Eunice couldn't help but pinch Arabella's cheeks. Her niece was truly a hidden gem. Meanwhile, Mr. Clarence's gaze remained dark and menacing. He turned to his head of security. How's the surveillance footage coming along? The head of security replied respectfully. Right before you went upstairs, 7 or 8 quests left the main hall for the garden. The cameras don't cover every nook there, but those who appeared on screen seemed normal. No anomalies detected. And what about Eunice and that girl she brought with her? Mr. Clarence asked, eyeing them from a distance, suspecting something fishy about the pair. Eunice has been cornered by a group of ladies the whole time, and as for that girl, Mr. Burnell was chatting her up not long before the cameras went down. We didn't get anything on tape. What did you say? Mr. Clarence's eyes flickered with shock. Could it be that girl had pulled off her move right then? After you mentioned someone was eavesdropping outside the study, I led a team to check on the quests. We searched the main hall, then the garden, and found Eunice and the girl there. Neither had left the area. They didn't seem suspicious. No. Mr. Clarence still sensed trouble. If that girl knew how to restore deleted footage, then she surely knew how to erase it. But the time from when you went to the study until we discovered the eavesdropper was only a few minutes. Our men were all over the property. If that girl really went upstairs, she would have been seen. It's unlikely she could move in and out undetected in such a short span. So, the head of security believed the suspicion was unfounded. It's either she's up to something, or she has an accomplice. Either way, keep a close eye on them. Even if they go to the restroom, send some women in after them to make sure they're not plotting something. Yes, sir. 10 minutes later, Arabella spotted Mr. Clarence ambling solo towards the restroom. Before his hand even grazed the restroom door, Arabella knocked him out cold and dragged him to the adjacent terrace, swiftly drawing the curtains closed. The head of security had just seen Arabella heading in the direction of the restroom, and in the next moment, she had vanished from sight. His instincts on high alert, he first searched the area, then had one of the maids knock on the restroom door. The maid's hand hadn't even touched the door when a soft cough of a woman could be heard from inside. It was so brief that the head of security couldn't be sure if it was Arabella or not. He could only stand aside and keep a stealthy watch. Behind the curtain, Arabella transferred all the chat messages from Mr. Clarence's phone to her own and set up remote monitoring. Then, she slipped the phone back into Mr. Clarence's pocket, leaped onto the roof, and flicked a pebble at him to wake him up. Mr. Clarence grunted in pain, groggily coming to, immediately alerting the head of security. The head of security pulled back the curtain to find Mr. Clarence sitting on the ground and hurried over to help him up. Mr. Clarence, what are you doing here? Mr. Clarence's head throbbed painfully. He vaguely remembered heading to the restroom but couldn't figure out how he had passed out. Was it possible someone had tampered with something? With this thought, he frantically checked his pockets. His keys and phone were still there, nothing seemed to be missing. He breathed a sigh of relief. Maybe he had just run out of steam. Just then, someone emerged from the restroom. It was Eunice. She walked with a seductive grace that caught the head of security's eye, making him suspect something was amiss. Eunice made her way to the main hall, right as Arabella returned from a different route. Arabella smiled and asked her darling niece, "Got it?" "Yep, it's on my phone now." Not only did Arabella secure the chat history, but she also set up real-time monitoring of Mr. Clarence's phone. From then on, whatever messages Mr. Clarence received or sent, Arabella would see them too. Eunice cast an approving glance at her niece. She hadn't expected one niece to be worth 100 others. Arabella's efficiency was so high, it was a true relief. At that moment, Arabella noticed Calvin, Bess, and Arlen descending the stairs with grim expressions, seeming to have parted on bad terms. Then, Mr. Clarence received a message, which he relayed to Arlen. The gist was that the deed was done. Arlen's eyes flickered with shock and delight. He seemed to hardly believe it, but Mr. Clarence nodded affirmatively, as if to say, "Rest assured, our people witnessed it." Reassured, Arlen invited all the guests to the garden for a fireworks display. Under the grand fireworks, Arlen urged all the guests to raise their glasses and drink to their heart's content. When the fireworks ended, he cut the cake amidst the crowd's cheers. What could possibly make him so jubilant? Eunice noticed Arlen had been beaming since the beginning, an expression of triumph she had never seen before. "Somebody messaged Mr. Clarence a while ago, saying the problem had been taken care of," Arabella explained. Perhaps this was someone who had been a thorn in Arlen's side. "It can only be your grandfather or uncle, but that's impossible," Eunice stated confidently. "They don't have the means to take care of anyone." A servant brought over slices of cake to them. Arabella nibbled symbolically on a few bites, but soon after, she noticed quests collapsing one by one. Eunice too struggled to stand, massaging her temples. Arabella steadied her, Aunt Eunice. She hadn't expected Eunice to be such a masterful actress. Eunice put Serena's attempts to shame. Arabella had already slipped Eunice the antidote earlier, so whatever they had been served, it had no effect on either of them now. One by one, guests collapsed before their eyes, and then suddenly the lights in the entire villa dimmed. Arabella felt a wave of malice surge toward her as a dozen men in black launched their attack. Another group of men in black went after Eunice, who just a second ago seemed dizzy but now sprang into action with fierce precision. Within seconds, she had laid out several attackers. Those lurking in the shadows couldn't believe their eyes.
Is Eunice that skilled?
What kind of moves are those? When did she learn them? Why has no one ever mentioned this? That woman has some deep secrets. Who is she really? Arabella was just as surprised by Eunice's prowess. With her stunning looks, Eunice was a storm of beauty and strength in combat, not dragging Arabella down in the slightest. On the contrary, in the next 5 minutes, the two women together took down every one of the assailants. In the darkness, Eunice's lips curved into a seductive smile. "Calvin, Bess, your guys are pretty weak. Aren't you going to show yourselves now?" No one stepped out of the night, and Eunice taunted, "Hiding is so boring, isn't it? And Arlen, Teresa, planning a murder, and you hire these amateurs? Is this level of skill meant to tickle us?" The lights in the living room flickered back on. Several elders, flanked by dozens of their men, emerged. Arabella saw that it wasn't just Calvin, Bess, Arlen, and Teresa. There were 2 other elders she didn't recognize. Eunice kept her smile. "Calvin and Arlen are in on this too?" This was unexpected. "What do you mean, in on this? We have no idea where these men in black came from." Arlen said with a chuckle, "Your fighting skills seem quite polished. It's not something you picked up overnight, right? You don't seem like someone who'd want me dead on a whim either. When did this start?" "Enough chit-chat, you wretch. Today's grand birthday celebration will serve as your funeral." Bess had never liked her, and this little girl by your side, it's your fault for bringing her along. You can keep each other company on the way to the underworld. Eunice laughed. "Bess, you're acting high and mighty, even more so than my father-in-law. You'd think you were ready to take over this family. My in-laws aren't dead yet, and you dare to be so bold. What, are you planning to usurp them? Since your in-laws are bedridden, someone needs to take charge of this family, and you younger ones need to be kept in line. The head of this family is Bard. If he knew what you've done today..." Before Eunice could finish, Bess interrupted with a laugh. "He won't find out." "What do you mean?" "Even if he did, he can't do anything about it." Bess declared triumphantly, "We just received word. The plane he was on exploded mid-flight and everyone was turned to ash." "That's impossible," Eunice stated flatly. "Whether you believe me or not, see for yourself in the video." Bess pulled out her smartphone, showing footage of Bard's private jet indeed exploding in the sky. Eunice gazed at the jet's distinctive silhouette and emblem. There was no mistake. It was Bard's private plane. That very aircraft had whisked him away on business earlier that day. Bard had promised her he'd return as soon as his work was done. She was in shock for a long moment before lifting her gaze, incredulous. "Did you do this?" "It's his own damn fault for having bad luck. Did he really think he was too good to attend Arlen's birthday bash? Does he have any respect for us elders? Who did he think he was? It was just a birthday party. Was it really worth all this? Bella and I showed up, didn't we? And who are you to talk? You're nothing but an outsider to the Griffiths. We've never acknowledged you as one of us all these years." Eunice's eyes blazed with fury and hatred as she faced the murderers. "Your acknowledgement isn't worth a dime. It was Bard who got down on one knee, not once but 3 times, to propose to me. It was my in-laws who wanted me to marry him. My place in the Griffith family was approved by the head of the family himself, my father-in-law. And what of it? They're bedridden now, too busy to care about your fate," Bess said with a smile that was as warm as a spring breeze. Teresa chimed in with a smirk. "Why waste words on her? Now that Bard's gone, everything he owned will naturally fall into this wench's hands. Boys, bring the pre-drafted share transfer and the deed of gift. Let's have her sign everything over to us." Dozens of bodyguards closed in around Eunice and Arabella, blocking any chance of escape. Mr. Clarence handed over the contract and a pen with a sly grin. "Mr. Calvin and Mrs. Bess are reasonable. Just sign, and we can talk. Who knows? They might even show you mercy and spare your life." Eunice remained unmoved by the contract and pen in his hand. "You can't escape from here. There are 60 guards in this living room alone, not to mention the hundreds outside. Even if you could fight, you'd eventually run out of steam. Besides, they had cast a net so wide that escape was impossible. Do you know the consequences of not signing? Teresa asked, arms crossed over her chest, looking down at Eunice with arrogance. You may not fear death and wish to follow your husband, but this young girl beside you is innocent. It would be a shame for her to miss out on a life of luxury before it even started. If you lay a finger on her, Kenneth and Louisa won't let you off the hook. Eunice shot back fiercely. The Collins family cherishes her like a treasure. Even setting aside the influence of Kenneth and Louisa, just my nephew, Hans alone is enough to make you think twice. The mention of Hans indeed changed the expressions of the elders present. Hans was known for his ruthless efficiency, a cold machine of a man who didn't entertain pleas of sentiment. Then there was Chaucel. If they dared cross him, he could expose countless secrets they held in Solterra. And Clark, renowned as a forensic expert with a wide network of powerful contacts and rumored to be a formidable hacker. If he decided to infiltrate their systems, they'd be in for a world of trouble. As for Sean, he might appear to be a charming playboy, but his methods were even more brutal than the eldest's. His unpredictable nature made him impossible to read. And of course, there was David, whose charisma and influence were undeniable.
If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.